Here we go. Dune Part 2 is here. This is the direct sequel or the continuation of the story of Dune, the classic science fiction novel written by Frank Herbert, published in 1965. As everyone knows, I'm a longtime Dune fan. The previous incarnations have not in my opinion, done justice to what is in the book. They were valiant attempts. In fact, there's much to love about David Lynch's 1984 Dune. And one of the things about the flaws of the 1984 Dune, it does a pretty good job of telling the beginning of the story, the first half, the fall of House Atreides. What it does, unfortunately, is it rushes through the second half of the book. It really does rush through it to get to this climactic ending. And a lot of it is even just the story is told in montage. If you're looking at the theatrical version of the 1984 David Lynch's Dune, there is a 3-hour version that is available on YouTube called the Spice Diver Cut. It's in 4K. I strongly recommend it. Now, do you need to watch Dune Part 1 to see Dune Part 2 and understand what's going on? Technically, you don't, but it would be nice. Because effectively, according to Denis Villeneuve, this is one movie broken into 2 parts. It's one north of 5-hour film that is broken into 2. It's broke in the middle, and then we're continuing nearly directly where we left off from Dune Part 1. It is then the rise of Paul Atreides. He goes through a series of tests with the tribe of Fremen, who he has befriended. Stilgar is a believer, but not everyone else is a believer. And what Dune Part 2 does really well, I want to focus on the positives first because I have nitpicks. I'm also not going to get into spoilers. The film in its scale is epic. Epic special effects, epically told. The stakes are right there. Paul Atreides is now seeks revenge for the death of not just his father, but everyone from House Atreides who lost their lives in the Harkonnen attack and takeover. So he's driven by revenge. And the tool that he will use is the belief in a legend, a myth that was created by the Bene Gesserit for his coming, for the coming of someone who would come to Arrakis, rally the Fremen in a holy war to not only take over the planet, but to then spread their new religion across the galaxy and attack these other great houses. That's the long-term goal. But Paul Atreides has to conquer the worm, which if you went to see the preview, and has actually been released already on YouTube, the scene where Paul Atreides does ride the worm. There are also a series of, other minor tests, just mastering the language, mastering the customs of the Fremen, and becoming a hero and proving himself amongst the people, where he engages in these attacks on the Harkonnen spice harvesters. He begins to build up a reputation. Could he be the Mahdi? And this reputation then grows to the point where the Harkonnens hear of Mahdi, which eventually gets the attention of the Emperor, who has to solve this nonsense. If you've read the book, if you've seen the original Dune by David Lynch or the miniseries on Sci-Fi Channel, you effectively know the story, but you've never seen it told in such detail. And what I like about it is what Denis Villeneuve does is he will come up with an incredible way to tell an epic part of the story, while at the same time taking a breath to let a moment play out, a conversation between himself and Stilgar, or a camaraderie with himself and the other Fremen who begin to admire him as he demonstrates his knowledge and in the strategies of effectively guerrilla warfare. So, Alan, am I missing anything about the story?
Well, I think to me,
Do you have anything to add?
To me, I think what I liked about this one compared to the others I've seen is I understand the Bene Gesserit much more, and I like the fact that how they are kind of the connective tissue of this entire world, and yet you still don't understand their importance yet, which I believe is the setup for the third movie. But I did like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I did like that aspect of it. And the film does a really good job of explaining the Bene Gesserit. Also, we get way more insight, much more insight into the Harkonnens.
Yeah. You know,
that I really, really like.
My favorite part of the movie was on the planet Harkonna. I don't know what they call it.
No. It's Gidi Prime.
Okay, whatever.
Gidi Prime.
Whatever.
Alan.
But the production design, the art design of that entire segment is nothing like I've ever seen. You know, a lot of thought and effort went into it. The fireworks during the celebration is like, oh, this is. I mean, it's different, and
it's weird. It's the best way to describe it is Gidi Prime. The scenes on Gidi Prime, which is a good chunk in the middle of the movie. Yeah. It just suddenly the story shifts to what's happening on Gidi Prime, and it's incredible. The politics that's happening, the Bene Gesserit, and all of their motivations. It's otherworldly. You feel like you're on a completely different planet that is unlike Arrakis, unlike Caladan. It's very, very different. And Austin Butler, I mean, I would say actually all the performances. Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha, he's just amazing. He is a psychopath, and to the point where I felt parts of this movie, you could have done an R-rated version of this movie. Yeah. There are parts that are so gruesome in the Colosseum, which we've seen in the trailer, and a lot of the fight scenes, the battle scenes. It's borderline R-rated film.
Yeah.
They literally could have just pulled the camera out just slightly and it would have had to be R-rated. I mean, they really danced up to the line of gruesome deaths in this film.
And I liked how they
borderline R-rated.
I like how they contrasted him with the Dave Bautista character because he is smaller. But in terms of brutality, in terms of gore, Austin Butler just nails it.
He does a fantastic job. I really can't say anything bad about any of the performances.
Yeah. But the one no one's talking about is Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yes. Well, don't talk about that.
Yeah,
now.
But she makes quite an impact.
Right. But let's just say this. To bottom line it, because there's so much I could gush over. I had a smile frozen on my face that by the end of the movie hurt. It like because I couldn't believe it's what Denis Villeneuve did so well was capture the tone of the book, the otherworldliness. It's so different. This is not for children. This is, as he stated before he even started making the first movie, he said, I am going to make Star Wars for adults. That's what this is. I have complaints, and we're going to get to them.
Well, here, let me make one comment.
Please.
But when I was watching Dune, funny you mentioned what you mentioned, but when I was watching Dune, the one thought I had in my mind is Chris is going to have a smile on his face this entire movie.
No, I did. Like it, I had to like stop and go like, have I been smiling for like 20 minutes straight? Like, because a lot of the stuff I thought I would never see, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm in two minds.
Let me just say from my review perspective to this point is that it to me I think it helps knowing the book before going in. The movie is fairly dense in terms of lore, and it's easy. It is so dense it's sometimes hard to understand the nuance and the details of it. And I think having some prior knowledge will help. And so I'm curious as to what someone truly cold will think about when they see this film.
That's the thing is, here's the thing about this. A lot of people are saying this is the greatest war movie since Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I can definitively say it is not.
No, it's
Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the battle at Helm's Deep, a completely different type of battle that encapsulated almost the entirety of that middle film and book.
It's the second half of the movie, basically.
Right. It's the second half of that movie is just all that battle. That's not what this is. I think that Two Towers had a better story in terms of the battle itself is a story. There are a series of battles in Dune Part 2 that are very different. You know, attacks on spice harvesters. There's other attacks. You know, the Harkonnens strike back. And then there's a climactic battle at the end. But it is not like the Two Towers. And I'll say that it's also hard to compare the two. Okay, Lord of the Rings is fantasy. Okay, it's fantasy, swords and sandals, whatever you want to say. It's, you know, it's a completely different. I don't think they're very comparable. This is epic science fiction, and on that level, it's better than anything Star Wars we've seen. Better than anything Star Wars we've seen, in particular from Disney.
I will say, look, the background here explains it clearly in terms of, in Two Towers, the action, this massive battle, this epic battle, you're in the middle of the battle. You are up front, close. You are standing upon the parapets, looking upon the orc army coming at them. In Dune, the background picture, this is pretty much how you see the battle of on Arrakis. It's very distant. The guys, you see the little guys there, very tiny, very small compared to the large sandworms. You know, in terms of the way it's structured and shot, the battle scenes in Two Towers far outshine any of the battle scenes in Dune. And then the ending, it doesn't feel a thing like Two Towers.
Yeah, I actually don't think they're comparable.
Yeah, I think you do a disservice trying to compare the two. Forget Lord of the Rings. Forget Lord of the Rings. Watch it Dune on its own.
Yeah, Dune is its own thing. Lord of the Rings is its own thing. If you're saying which is the better war movie, I think Two Towers is a better as a war film. But Dune Part 2 is more. It's basically like it's setting up a whole world, and we're going to get into it later. It's setting up a third film. And that's kind of what bugged me. So let me get into that. Like, and look, let's give it, we're going to get into, not necessarily we're not going to get into spoilers. We'll do that later. But I do want to say this, that it's for me, the best incarnation of Dune ever on screen. It builds the world, and it's still the Cliff Notes version of the world. So while it does a great job with the Bene Gesserit, Harkonnens, and the Fremen, there are a lot of things that were left out. Guild navigators, we don't know anything about them. We don't ever see one. Okay. There are other parts of the Dune universe that will come later that we also do not see. But it does a good job of that. It's also, there's just for condensation sake, a lot was left out of the book. So I almost think like if you're like I'll end on this. I give the film a 9.5 out of 10 as a film. As a fan of the book, I got to give it maybe an 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10. So it's just, while as a movie, and I'm really curious what a normie is going to think of it. Someone
who has no knowledge of Dune.
No knowledge of Dune, no knowledge of the book, hasn't even seen the previous Dune films, has just seen Dune Part 1 and is going to see Dune Part 2. Here's what Dune Part 2 does so well. That previous, that at least the 84 Dune by David Lynch did not do, which is Paul is evil. He's not the hero. He is using the Fremen to accomplish a goal that is his personal goal, which is revenge against the Emperor.
Are you saying that's the book?
I'm saying that's the book.
Okay.
And I'm saying that the movie did a good job of that. David Lynch's Dune did not do that.
Okay.
That's how it's different. David Lynch's Dune added things that weren't in the book and then took out a lot of things that probably should have been in. But that is, those that have been, that say the film is, it's just another, you're the one. This movie sort of flips that. It's not the so-called quote white savior, which is overused, whatever. This is different than that. It's in a way, and the book has even more layers to it, where it's like he foresees himself effectively becoming, this totalitarian dictator across the galaxy responsible for the deaths of billions of people. And he wants to try to undo this fate that's spiraling ahead of him that he can't stop. So it's kind of like if Darth Vader knew, if Anakin Skywalker knew he would become Darth Vader, how do I undo that destiny? And that's what the book goes into, that this movie kind of glosses over.
Okay. All right.
So that's why the book is always going to be, and look, here I am, a big fan of the book. And so if I hadn't read the book, would I love it? Yes. Having read the book, I love it. I love it less than I would have. Still, I mean, look, there's no way I'm not recommending this movie. It's going to turn out, in my opinion, I know it's early in the year, probably one of the best films of the year. But I have nitpicks, and it all has to do with the book and the ending. And we're not going to talk about that now because that would be getting into spoilers. We will give you a warning before we do that, and we will check in with your comments. Alan, final thoughts from you.
So let me ask you a question. So me not knowing the books, in terms of Chani's, and not giving any spoilers, Chani's attitudes towards Paul as Muad'Dib, was that fairly accurate?
No. In the book, there are other people who are skeptics, but Chani is pretty much, she's Team Paul the whole way. So in this, and I understand why they did it, they kind of made her a skeptic of Paul, and then she becomes she changes. It adds conflict in their relationship. Otherwise, in the book, frankly, the relationship between Paul and Chani is kind of boring. He has this vision of her. He's kind of in love with her before he meets her. Because she shows up in his dreams.
That was in the first movie. That was definitely in the first movie.
Right. But then he meets her, and he's really got a thing for Chani. And then, if you're concerned that it's going to go a little bit too YA novel, young adult novel, and a little cheesy, it doesn't. It's pretty grounded. I wish they had better chemistry. I think they did it fine. The romance doesn't dominate it, but it's fairly accurate to the book, with the exception of they added conflict that's represented in the book by other characters, and they kind of just added that to her. And I actually don't think it's a terrible decision.
And there was some popcorn bucket action between the two of them. So,
right. So there you go. Alan, your final thoughts. I'm rating it a 9.5 out of 10 as a movie. Between an 8.5 and or a 9 if you're a fan of the book. And I'm not gonna, I can't get into what those reasons are right now.
Yeah. I would give it an 8.5. I appreciate the spectacle of it. I appreciate the art direction, appreciate the special effects. This is kind of the science fiction movie we've been waiting to see for a very long time. And Denis pulls it off. And my only complaint is it's very deep in the lore. And if you don't know it, you're gonna have you will struggle with it, and I think that's the only thing, because I'm asking questions constantly throughout the movie.
But see, this is why I like it. The problem with modern, and I have to throw another compliment to the movie that is something that once I bring it up, you can notice it or not. We're going through this age where you can do anything with digital effects, and we're seeing some of the worst genre movies made. We just talked about Madam Web. We've looked at the state of Star Wars and Marvel. I mean, these movies are bad. They're not made for adults. They haven't aged up with the audience. The one thing you have to give Harry Potter credit for is over the years that the 8 Harry Potter movies were made, the movies aged up in terms of maturity with the audience that was watching it. So the early Harry Potter films are very much for children, and the later Harry Potter films are darker and more for teens and adults. This movie is for adults. This is adult science fiction. We rarely ever get to see an adult science fiction movie that takes the subject matter seriously, that doesn't assume the audience is stupid. And not only are the special effects grand and epic in scale, they're different. When they shoot laser guns, it's not like, in Star Wars, it's this visual shorthand that Star Wars started this template and then everyone ripped it off. And Denis Villeneuve went, I'm going to make my movie look different. When there are laser guns, lasers, as would appear in real life, it's just a laser beam. It's not a pew, 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 which then everybody ripped off, right? It's the epic scale that you believe you're in the world. That is what any good genre, superhero, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, I want it to feel real. And the best moments of that you got from the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films, which I understand why you would compare. I get it, different things. Or the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight films, the three. It's grounded in a reality, and that's what Denis Villeneuve did. And when you look at the quality of the effects, he doesn't sit there and explain everything. There's not like a captain plot whatever going, once they reach the shield, we will bring the shield down and blah, blah. You know how like every dumb science fiction movie feels the need to. Now there's a little bit of that, like with like, just so you understand what's going on, but not so much that you feel like you're stupid. Even the Chris Nolan movies will be like, if the train reaches the so-and-so, the gas will reach it. You know, there's like,
well, Mission Impossible is all about that.
Yeah. Where it's just like some character has to say out loud a thing that we can see on screen is happening. Dune assumes you're smart enough to catch up. Now, I've only seen the movie once. I am sort of allowing it to germinate. After I saw it, I had to kind of go out and take a moment. And I went out with a buddy of mine, Jeff, who's actually going to be on Versus on Monday. He has a YouTube channel, and we always talk about Dune because he and I think we're the only two critics who are like super fans of the book. And so after the screening, Jeff and I just sat at dinner and we're just like talking about all aspects of it. And it's like, I don't want to talk about it, but the very end of the movie bugged me because I feel like it was a setup for part 3.
Well, yeah.
Don't talk about it.
I kind of expected it. It was just like, yeah, of course they're gonna. It. Okay, but here. So to my comment, to me, the thing is when I say you have to have a little bit of knowledge, there were times throughout the film where I'm like, well, what's the significance of that? I'm racking my brain trying to go, okay, where was this in the original movies and all that stuff. Yeah. And it just felt like, there was stuff that was going on that I was missing out on or couldn't quite figure out why it was important. And I think that's what I think normies will struggle with when watching the movie.
This is what'll be interesting. On Monday, we're going to review the film again with like 8 other people, okay, who have all seen the movie. I'll have seen it then a second time. Dune Part 1 got better on each viewing. I saw it twice when they re-released it theatrically like a week or so ago. I went and saw it 2 more times. I saw it in IMAX, and I got to say, that movie only got better on repeat viewings. Yeah. Only got better. Yeah. And a complaint. Okay. I'm not going to get into the book. I'm not going to get into the book nitpicks. I'll do that later. But I'll just say that the movie to me felt short. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. I wanted it to be longer. It felt like they were trying to wrap things up. And to me, it felt short only because I've read the book. That's why. So make of that what you will.
I mean, the only time it felt short to me was basically the jump from the big battle to the final battle. And by the final, you know what I mean by the final battle. Because it was just like, okay, well, that, what happened between that? Because you figured there'd be more death and dying in between that. So, but it definitely didn't feel short to me. It felt as long as the movie was.
Yeah. So in any case, look, Alan and I are both recommending the movie.
Absolutely.
And I have issues mainly related to the fact that I've read the book. All right.